Today we will be making homemade wine from the Moldova grape variety. Last time I made it from the Cadrianca grape, but the video turned out to be a bit lengthy and unclear. So let's get started. First, it is necessary to remove the berries from the stems to prevent bitterness and unwanted flavors. You should also remove any rotten or spoiled berries. The branches have already started to dry, which means we picked it at the right time. The work is monotonous but necessary. All procedures for processing grapes for wine production must be carried out in non-living containers, such as plastic or even wooden ones, because any metal that oxidizes will subsequently produce oxides that can be harmful to the body. For small amounts of grapes, you can use a regular potato masher for crushing, but I have a lot of grapes, so I will use a whisk for mixing construction mixtures and a high-speed drill. We carefully lower the whisk down to the full depth of the ripe, juicy grapes, ensuring it reaches the bottom, and then we begin the meticulous process of crushing them thoroughly to extract their rich flavors and juices. I do not wash the grapes before crushing, so there are natural yeast present that stimulate fermentation. For crushing the grapes, it is advisable to use a tall container so that the grapes do not scatter around the room due to the centrifugal force of the whisk. The crushing of the grapes is complete. A characteristic foam has appeared, and it can now be set for fermentation. If you weren't able to perfectly crush the grapes and there are whole berries, it's not a problem. You can repeat the crushing in a day or two, and the skins of the berries will be thinner because fermentation has started. After that, the container with the crushed grapes needs to be placed in a warm location, where the temperature should be around 20 degrees Celsius. It is necessary to stir the cap that rises to the top twice a day, in the morning and in the evening, using a wooden stick or some kitchen utensil. The lower the temperature, the longer the fermentation process will last on the mash. At a temperature of 20 degrees, the fermentation of the mash will last about 5 days. After that, it is necessary to separate the wort from the mash and continue the wine production. A sign that fermentation is almost complete will be when the cap stops rising. The release of carbon dioxide will be completely halted to prevent the presence of gnats and to avoid air access to the pomace. It is absolutely necessary to tightly close the container with a lid and place it near the radiator. It is very preferable to harvest the grapes in dry weather, and the time before processing should be as short as possible. Well, a week of vigorous fermentation in a warm room has passed, and now it is necessary to separate the wort from the pomace. If we look at the pomace, we can see that the cap has stopped rising and bubbles of carbon dioxide are almost no longer visible, which means it's time to press it. To extract the wort from the pomace, it is necessary to use a special press, but if you do not have one, you can take a regular strainer used for potatoes and squeeze it out without using a press. Let's carefully place it in a small flat container, which can be a bowl, and gently pour the pomace into it. Fill the bowl until it is completely, entirely, and utterly full. After that, we take another clean small container and very carefully transfer the bag with the cake into it, ensuring no spillage and maintaining cleanliness. The finished wort that remains in this container needs to be thoroughly and gently filtered. For this, I will use a strainer for rinsing pasta, with care and attention to achieve the best outcome. If the strainer is clogged, take a regular clean spoon and start moving it in a circle. Don't throw away the cake that remains at the bottom of the strainer. It is a good yeast for making quality mash for moonshine. Therefore, we carefully transfer it to another clean container. The strainer is also thoroughly clean and completely ready for filtration. Thus, it is necessary to filter all the wort that remains after the extraction. At the next stage, it is necessary to squeeze the wort out of the pomace that remains in the bag. For this, we will need a regular lid from a pot or any wooden disc that you have at home. Now we take the lid, wrap the bag well, and place it carefully, gently, and very securely on top. And we press with our feet, cleverly and conveniently. The juice has already flowed to the edge. We pour it back into the bucket. After such pressing, the pomace is almost dry and can be used to make moonshine if it is used as yeast. The dough is already almost dry, and nothing is leaking from it. Now we pour it into the barrel for subsequent filling with sweet syrup. Even if a little wine ends up in the pomace, it's not a big deal, because later the pomace will be reprocessed, everything will be boiled down, and good moonshine will result. Therefore, it is necessary to press all the pomace to obtain worty. After separating the wort from the pomace, it is necessary to add sugar to it. If, of course, you are making dry wine, then sugar is not needed, and you can simply place it under an airlock. But if you are making semi-sweet wine, it is necessary to add between 1 to 1.5 kilograms of sugar for every 10 liters of wine. If you are making dessert wine, you need to add 2 kilograms or more per 10 liters of wine. I will be making semi-sweet wine, so I will add 1.5 kilograms of sugar per 10 liters of wine. And mix well after the sugar has dissolved in the wort. It is necessary to transfer it to a sealed bottle. The larger the bottle, the more convenient it is to use. But the optimal size is 20 to 30 liters, which can be lifted and moved to the desired location by oneself. I will use a 1-meter hose for transferring the wort. The hose is made of rubber, but it can be made from any material that does not impart other odors. The inner diameter of the hose is 1.3 millimeters, but for transferring wine, I use a hose with a centimeter diameter because it is more convenient. We place the bottle at ground level and the wort at a height of 1 meter. This will be sufficient for a complete transfer. We create a vacuum in the room detail and the wine flowed. This method is more convenient because it splashes less wine around the bottle and there is no need to use a funnel. You should not fill the bottle completely, as foam will form during fermentation, which will escape into the glove and spoil the fermentation process. After that, it is necessary to install an airlock on the bottle. I have a factory-made lid like this, but I don't like it because it sometimes lets air in and doesn't create a tight seal. You can make one yourself, or you can use a regular non-sterile medical glove. Take the gypsy needle and make a small hole in one of your fingers, in the middle. If it is not enough, you can make a couple more holes in the neighboring fingers. Now cut a small ring with a diameter of 3 to 4 centimeters from an old camera or rubber glove. The main thing is that it should be elastic. Now we put a rubber glove on the bottle and place a rubber ring on the neck. To prevent the glove from slipping off, we wait until it rises. Here, my glove has deflated while making wine. You can taste it and, if necessary, add some sugar to ensure the wine doesn't take on the smell of the sediment. I will now remove it from the sediment, add a little sugar, and it can be set for further fermentation. I take a tube with a small diameter. Here, it has an inner diameter of 0.8 mm. I place the bottle on an elevation, put a clean bucket underneath, and carefully siphon the wine from the sediment. Do not throw away the yeast that remains in the 2 bottles. You can make good moonshine from it, or leave it to settle in the bottle for another week, and a layer of wine will form on top that can also be siphoned off. Now let's try the resulting wine and decide on the amount of sugar. The wine turned out a bit dry, so I will add another 50 grams of sugar per 1 liter of wine. Therefore, for 10 liters of wine, I will add 500 grams of sugar. And mix thoroughly until everything is completely mixed and well combined. After dissolving the sugar, it is necessary to also taste the wine. It should be slightly sweeter than what you want to achieve in the end. It's almost what I need. So, I can insert it under the airlock and wait for it to fully ferment. With the same tube, we siphon the sweetened wine back into the bottle. The bottle can now be filled to the very top, as there will be no foam, and the glove will not get dirty. We also put on the glove that was previously on it. Everything can be placed for fermentation in a warm place. It is preferable for the fermentation temperature of the wine to be around 20 degrees Celsius, but not lower than 13 degrees, as fermentation will be inhibited and it will not complete. After the airlock deflates, it is necessary to taste the wine. If you do not like it, add sugar. If it is sufficient, then take the same tube.